The Reserve Bank of India completes 80 years of its inception. We have the man himself, Raghuram Rajan, the Governor of Reserve Bank of India, to talk to us. Thank you for talking to us, sir. Congratulations, first of all. 80 years and still standing tall. How would you like to describe the entire evolution?
Well, it's a long time in the life of man, short time in the life of an institution. There are 300-year-old central banks, but look, we're a young country, and I think that there is so much to do. So I think we look back on the 80 years and feel a sense of pleasure that the institution has stood tall with capability and integrity. But we have so many needs of the economy today, and so we're trying to rejuvenate from the inside and hope that it's the next 80 years we're looking forward to.
Okay. On the 80th year, you people are going to holding a financial inclusion conference, and Reserve Bank of India has always been supportive of financial inclusion policy. So tell us about tomorrow's program, and also what efforts RBI is taking for financial inclusion.
Well, we're very fortunate tomorrow morning to have the Prime Minister come for the conference, along with the Finance Minister, the Chief Minister of Madhya Pradesh, of Maharashtra, and also the Governor. But the most, important challenge in front of us is to get everybody into the financial system. And my sense is that we have to try various things. Of course, the government with the Jan Dhan Yojana as well as the new Mudra Bank is trying to move on both, reaching the household as well as the small borrower. But we have to also work on creating new institutions. We are going to license the Small Finance Bank as well as the Payment Bank. But also use technology, because to reach the small person, it's very costly unless you use technology in a clever way. There are some banks which are already doing it, but what we need to do is facilitate that process. So new kinds of business correspondence, new kinds of ways of traversing the last mile, of making sure that you can service these accounts at relatively low cost. I think that has to be the way forward, and I'm glad to say there are many experiments on, and we'll see some of them succeed.
Also, when we're talking about rate cuts, when RBI is doing the rate cuts, it is mostly seen the banks are not, the consumers cannot have the benefit of the rate cuts because the banks are not doing it. So what is the main reason you are seeing as the RBI governor, why banks are not implementing those cuts? And also now some banks are saying that if RBI cuts the CRR, then it will be beneficial for them.
Well, I can't speak about policy going forward. I can just reiterate what we said in the last policy, that there will be a time lag between when we cut rates and when the banks cut rates. My sense is, as the tightness in liquidity ceases, March is usually a tight moment, that transmission will start taking place. So I think, as I said in the February review, it is a matter of time.
Also for India, IMF chief Christine Lagarde, she has said that she sees India, she's bullish on India. Also, IMF has expected 7.5% for 2015-16. ADB, that has also forecast 7.8% growth rate for 15-16. Now, globally, India has become a bright spot. Do you think this is achievable, and how?
Well, I think achievable depends on how your understanding of the new CSO numbers, how that occurs. I think based on the numbers that they have put out, it clearly is achievable. And what we need to really focus on is, forget the GDP numbers, we need to focus on getting our stranded projects back on track. We need to get infrastructure investment up. We need to get the Aam Aadmi more willing and confident about the future, so that he or she starts spending with moderate amounts of debt rather than excessive debt. So if we put all these together, we will have sustainable growth, whether that's 7, 6, 8, 9, doesn't matter. We need to just remove the impediments in the way of growth, and that's what I think we're all engaged in.
Okay, now you answered that. I'm tempted to ask you, what would be your reaction? It's a late question, but what would be your reaction for the budget?
Reaction, I think we've already expressed. There are a number of important medium-term measures that are in there, which I think will help, the process of sustainable growth. For example, on structural reforms, there's the point about bringing in a bankruptcy code. There's, of course, the talk about GST, which is going to be very important. All these measures, I think, put together will help the longer run growth of the country. So I think there's a lot of optimism built into the that is created by the budget.
Okay, let's talk about problems now. Mounting NPAs, bad loans has always been a concern for the entire nation. What is RBI taking, what measures RBI is taking to deal with them? And also I would like to ask you, what are the key problems that RBI is seeing?
Well, I think this is the value of looking back 80 years. What you see is that we've seen such situations before. Early 2000s, we had NPAs which were significantly larger in the system. But that doesn't mean we can be complicit now. We certainly have to work on cleaning up. And our sort of attempt is really a two-pronged strategy. One, convince the banks to recognize the problems quickly, because the sooner you deal with the problem, the less it becomes a festering sore. It can be cleaned up and dealt with quickly. So convince the banks to look at it quickly, even while giving them more leeway to deal with the problem. So for example, SEBI just came out with regulations allowing banks to convert at a reasonable price into equity. We were, of course, working with SEBI to make this happen. And the fact that it's finally happened will give banks an additional tool. And we've given them a variety of tools over the last few quarters to deal with the bad loan problem. So deal with it, but also we give you more power to deal with it. And going forward, as growth picks up, hopefully the problems will get alleviated. But it's something that is work in progress. Have we seen the peak of the bad loans? I don't know. I think we still can't say we're out of the woods.
Okay. Lastly, any new strategy RBI is coming up with for tomorrow?
No, I think tomorrow is certainly looking forward as to what we need to do. Typically, if you read the papers on a daily basis, we are announcing changes. So reform is an ongoing thing at the RBI. I mean, if you see what has been happening over the last so many quarters, you will see a tremendous movement forward. So the RBI is not a static institution, but we don't pick one day to announce all the changes. It happens on a continuous basis.
No, like if I'm a common person, I would be saying 80 years and RBI is like still standing tall. So what new measures RBI is coming with? That's my question.
I mean, we've done a huge amount. We will do a lot more. But if you want to think about where the thrust area is, I think the thrust area as far as financial inclusion, which is the subject of the conference tomorrow, is on bridging that last mile.
Okay.
It is, can we make the payment system technologically more efficient? And here there are lots of new ideas that are going to be implemented over the next few months. So I would say payments, new ways of making payments, new ways of bridging the last mile, new ways of reaching that customer in the village. Those are things that you should watch out for over the next few quarters.
All right. Thank you so much for talking to us.
Most welcome.
That was Raghuram Rajan. He was saying that bridging the last mile, that for financial inclusion, RBI is really taking all the necessary efforts, taking all the necessary steps to bridge the last mile and bring the entire nation into the financial inclusion.